Hi, I'm Paul Duchesne. Welcome to Mama Paul in the Kitchen. What we're going to do tonight is part 2 of what we started last week. So last week, basically, I was reviewing the main food items that I make every week, including the fruit salad, my green salad, the hard vegetables I put on top, the sprinkle I put over the whole salad, and then on the side I made I used lion's mane's mushrooms and escarole to make the vegetable dish that I make pretty much almost every week, or at least every other week, using medicinal mushrooms. And then I did a little asparagus thing. There had been 3 recipes in the newspaper for asparagus last week, and one of them called for them baking the asparagus, another called for them boiling the asparagus, and a third called for them making a raw salad with the asparagus sliced on the diagonal lengthwise. I decided to bake the asparagus in my toaster oven back there, and I was going to finish them by pretty much just drizzling some olive oil, maybe some sesame seeds on it, maybe a little lemon. So I'm going to finish this off and plate the whole deal at the end here. The idea is to plate the whole thing and show you a finished plate for dinner. Now, where I left off last week, I had finished the fruit salad. I put that aside. And the only thing I never mentioned was I picked up a cherimoya. These just came out this week. I suspect you're going to find them in some of your produce departments. And take a look for the cherimoya. They're a little bit pricey, but boy, are they worth the price. When these things start to get a little bit soft, this is hard as a rock right now. It'll be like an avocado in terms of it getting ripe. It's a cross between, it's sort of like a pineapple-y custard. It's absolutely yummy, delicious. Have these big pits in there, but it's real custardy. It's really unique. It's only going to be around for about a month or so this time of year. So if you see any cherimoya in the store, grab one. They're absolutely yummy, delicious. And don't eat the whole thing. Split it out into add it to 4 different say meals. I just wanted to mention it because they were out. They're there. And try to keep appraised of what's in the market that week. I think that's one of the most important things going on when you're going shopping, is to look for what just came out that week, what's local, and what's in the basket for the week. Alice Waters used to go around the country, and she would go to the farmer's market, and there was a classic picture of her, which I have downstairs but not up here, of her literally dancing with her little Tai Chi slippers on at a farmer's market, and she looks absolutely marvelous as so she goes to the farmer's market. She doesn't know what they're going to make for the restaurant that night until she goes to the farmer's market to see what they've got there that day. And that's a good way to judge how you do things in the kitchen. So anyway, like I said, we left it there, and I had finished off the green part of the salad, which was the mixture of mixed lettuces, spinach, baby spinach. I got sunflower sprouts in here, and dandelion, and radicchio, or chicory as they call it. So that's all here. That's the green part of my salad. I keep it in a breathable nylon bag. It'll stay like this, and this will last a good solid 5 days, maybe even more. We're going to put that into the salad. So I have the green part of the salad, and I put the hard vegetables on top. And the hard vegetables for me are celery, fennel, and red pepper. Now, I've talked about this in the past, and this has got to do with the food combining and the Ayurvedics. And for me, these 3 vegetables work really well. I found out from looking at it that the fennel is actually in most of the different body types. And so being the red pepper. The celery wasn't in all body types. But you don't want to get too anal about this, and whatever works for you is what you really want to go with. In addition to that, so these I'm going to put in a separate container. But when I make the salad for the short run, I'm going to add cucumber and jicama. And we'll get to them in a couple of minutes. So I'm going to do that first, and then we'll make the topping for the salad, which I ran out of everything. So today's the day I do everything that I ran out of. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the celery, and these are pretty big heads. And I usually use two stalks. And in my grocery store, I can go and I can just go to the where the celery is. I can just take 2 or 3 stalks off the whole head of celery and not have to buy the whole thing, which is really nice. And I don't know how much celery you can possibly use unless you're making unless you're juicing. A lot of people juice and they use the classic carrot celery beet is the classic vegetable juice that people have been drinking for years. I suspect I'm going to go with the other celery in here too. That's the one head of celery, and then I'm going to get rid of the stems on the fennel, and we'll cut it in half and get rid of the core in there. And we might as well cut the whole thing up today, being that I missed doing a political show last week. My work schedule got in the way of things. It happens sometimes, and suddenly you're working so many days you don't get time to do anything else, and that's what happened last week. So I finished up the political shows with 5 shows about the Powell memo, and I have a few other things that I want to talk about, but let's focus on this now, and we'll get another show up and running next week, politically, maybe even before the end of the week. So we'll dice up everything nice and small. First cutting it lengthwise, turning it around. Oh, well, I'll tell you know when you've got good fresh vegetables when you're cutting them, and the especially aroma. The fennel has a really strong licoricey kind of because that's what it is. Smell to it. It's just almost knocks you out. And remember, the whole idea here is when you're doing these kind of things is you want to balance what you're doing. So if one thing is too strong in one direction, you're going to balance it with something that's not as strong in another direction. And when you wind up putting them together, you're going to get a good result. And that's what's important, is the result at the end of the day. So got the whole big, decent sized bulb of fennel there. And there are sometimes when I'll do half of it, and I'll do just half of the fennel, half of the pepper. If I was going to do half a pepper, you can't just take everything. You would, if I was going to do half the pepper, I would cut this end of it a little bit bigger, and then I would wrap it up, leaving the inner workings in it, not take it out, and it'll last longer that way if you do it like that. So if you're gonna, and the same thing with the fennel, I would cut it down, leave the stem part in it, and wrap it up in plastic for the week. And if I did that, it would hold up pretty nicely for 5 or 6 days. The whole goal for me is to not be cooking and doing this every day. I like to cook, I like to be in the kitchen, but I also don't like to be here every day doing the same thing. So, which is why I'm doing the show on Tuesday, because it works for me. It's my one day a week when I need to do all my cooking anyway, so we'll try to combine the 2 activities at the same time. And there were a couple little items that I hadn't finished talking about GMOs last week, and I'm going to get to that hopefully in a couple of minutes here when we finish up with the peppers and the celery. And so the big thing with this is, when I started off with this whole deal a few years ago, I hardly ever ate salads. I really didn't grow up with salads. I hardly ate salads. I didn't like salads. And when I got into macroneurotics, my God, the salad was mashugana. You didn't see a salad hardly anywhere. And like I said, when they used to do salads in macrobiotics, they would press, I thought this was hysterical, they would press the lettuce to get the moisture out of the lettuce because it's too yin. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but what the macrobiotic people did learn us to do, what the macrobiotic movement did teach us how to do was to cook, because that is what they were big on, was cooking. And at the end of the day, people like Anna Marie Colvin wound up opening up a cooking school in the middle of Manhattan, right off Broadway, in fact. And there used to be, back in the 60s, there were probably maybe 2 macrobiotic restaurants in Manhattan, and one of them in the East Village was the little Jewish lady on, I think she's on East 4th Street. And she was right down the block from the Cauldron. There were two of them on the same block. And she actually invented the first tofu cheesecakes back in the mid-60s. Let's put it that way, mid-60s. The only place in the world where you could get a tofu cheesecake. She invented them down there. And most of the people were getting healthy, but when you looked at the macrobiotic crowd, a lot of them were thin, gaunt, and not much color. All right, so we got 90% of it here. I went this far. Let's get rid of the stem there and get the rest of the celery in here. All right. Yeah, the first time I went into this little place to go shopping, they had a little restaurant on one side and they had a little grocery store on the other side. And the grocery store, so it's in Manhattan, and the packaged staples were there, and the rice and the noodles and things like that. But as far as produce go, it was a wasteland, literally a wasteland. You were better off going to the A&P and getting groceries. And you would get, you'd pick up some carrots and they would look, wilted, and none of the vegetables looked good there at all. And funny, a few years later, I wound up in Boston studying macrobiotics, and Hiroshi, I think was the guy that was the head chef there. And at one point, he basically brought this up. He said, well, you go to the store and you're going to get organic groceries or you're going to get non-organic groceries. And you pick up the organic, and they look, and he holds up these wilted carrots. He said, you're going to buy these or you're going to buy these? Well, obviously, you're not going to get the wilted ones. You're going to buy the fresh, bright ones. So there's a line with organics. There's a line with all of this stuff. And common sense is usually what wins out in the long run. All right, so I've got, this is a lot here for the week. So I have a full week supply here. I hope it holds up in 6 days and looks as good as it does right now. So I'm going to take this and I put this in a little KitchenAid container here. And what I try to do with these is keep as little air in them as possible. The less air you have in there, the longer it'll last. So you got a whole bunch of stuff in there. You want to pound it down and it'll take up less and less space. You'd be surprised how much you can get into a container after you think it's all full. And you find out, if you give it a little couple of taps, you can get quite a bit more in there, which we just did. So we got that whole bottle got into here. As I use this during the week, I will, when it gets halfway down, I'll move it to a smaller container. So I'm always trying to keep as little air in there as possible. So, I got my hard vegetables, I got my green vegetables. To these hard vegetables, I am going to add, and I'm just going to add it for the salad that I use for that day and the next day. I'm going to add cucumber and jicama. Now these are two interesting. A lot of the cucumbers, especially the European cucumbers, wrapped in this plastic, and I wouldn't keep it in the plastic too long. I would get it out of the plastic, let it breathe. I think it holds up better out of the plastic. The plastic seems to create, the cucumber is going to be exuding a little bit of moisture. And the little bit of moisture it's exuding is going to get between it and the plastic. So you could wind up, if it sits in there too long, with the whole thing getting a little bit ratty and real. Okay, so I got the plastic off, and well, why don't I put the plate together? I'll put the salad on the plate. All right. So normally what I would do is I would take the green vegetables. So what I do is when I make my salad for tonight, I make enough for actually a couple of days, and I put the remainder in a small container. So I'm going to make this tonight, and hopefully I'm going to get 3 meals out of it. Tonight, breakfast and dinner for tomorrow night, and then I'll change the container. So what doesn't eat tonight, I'm going to put into this small container. So I'm going to add these vegetables, and then a couple of handfuls of the hard vegetables. All right, so we're done with those. And then the last thing I'm going to add, like I said earlier, a second ago, is the cucumber, and jicama. Get rid of this little end. And I try to keep things, like I said a few times now, bite-sized. You don't want to be choking, and you don't want to use a knife when you're eating a salad. So I'll spread the cucumber across. Now the reason I don't put the cucumber in with those hard vegetables is it's so wet. Cucumbers are so wet that they're going to leach into the rest of it and cause it to go bad faster. Now this is the real tricky one, jicama. Now this jicama I've had probably about a week and a half or so. Now I haven't used it in 3 nights. I keep it on a plate, upside down, out of the refrigerator. And I've been through this with a few people about what's the best way to store jicama. It doesn't go well in the refrigerator. Wrapping it and having it in the refrigerator, or wrapping it and having it out, doesn't do well. Another case where there's so much moisture, it'll exude into the wrapping. So it could be in a nylon bag that's breathing in the refrigerator, but it actually doesn't do well in the refrigerator. It does better. I've done this for quite a while, quite a few times now. But while it's been here for 3 days, it's gone bad. This side here has definitely gone bad. So the first thing we're going to do is get rid of that. I'm just going to cut the little end off there, and the rest of it is just fine. Just absolutely fine. Nice, clear, white moisture. It's a tuber. It's a tuber. And jicama is actually, I had to look this up, because I didn't even know whether it was any good for you, to tell you the truth. I just knew that I liked it. It was sort of, has like a coconutty kind of a texture to it, and it's a little bit sweet, and it's chewy, and it's absolutely yummy, delicious. And it's in a lot of Mexican cooking. Well, it turns out it's actually called a Mexican turnip. A Mexican turnip. And it's I'm not sure what family it's in. I could not even find it even listed in my book, in Composition and Facts of Food. Could not even find it listed in an old book I've had for a long time from the Ford Heritage Foundation. And it's just a compendium of all sorts of information about all your vegetables and fruits and what the nutritional composition is. But jicama is not mentioned once in there. So I Googled it like you do everything nowadays. And it turns out the tuber is much like the endive. Blew my socks off. Tuber, jicama is like the endive. It turns out it's low carb, a little bit of protein, hardly any fat, and it's loaded with vitamins. It's loaded with K, and it's loaded with minerals, and has some iron and potassium in there. And it was just a mountain of really good nutritional information about jicama. So I feel better about it. And thanks for watching the show, because I never would have looked it up otherwise. It's something I would have just kept eating, whether it was good for me or not, just because I liked it, which turns out to usually be my bottom line. Okay, so I don't use a lot of it. We put a look, and like I said, if I added this to my hard vegetables, they would get slimy, and they would cause everything else to go bad. So for a 24-hour period, this will be fine on here. That'll be just fine in here. So there's this salad that I just put together. Now, that's ridiculously big. I'm going to eat about that much of it tonight. So what I'm going to do is run my knife through it, do a separation. I'm going to put it right into my little container here. And so that's what I'm going to have tonight on my salad. That's my salad for the night. That's more than enough. That's a nice size salad. And I'm going to eat it on the same plate with the other food. I'm going to leave that here for a moment. We're going to put this away. And the jicama we'll put away. And we're done with the cucumber. Okay, so the last part of getting this whole salad thing together is the dress, or the topping, not the dress. It's not a well, you could call it a dressing, I guess. Dressing, topping, whatever you want to call it. And I've made this before, and everything I'm doing I've done before. But I found out that repetition sometimes is good for the soul. I watch Rachel Maddow, and she repeats herself all the time. When I worked for AT&T in the corporate world, there was a rule of 3. So if you want to let somebody know something, you write them a memo. And the first thing they do with the memo is they get it, they see it, and they throw it in the basket. You send them a second memo. They look at it, they read it, they remember they got it the first time. It rings a little bell. They throw it away again. You send them the memo the third time, they read it, they look at it, they read it, they realize they've seen it before, and they act on it. They respond to it. And this was like a common law in the corporate world, where people just disregarded things that went by them like this, and it wasn't until it boom, boom, whoa, and then they could see it. So the repetition probably isn't the worst thing in the world. Now what I put in the topping is, the first thing is I use the Kale Crunch, and I buy this is Lydia, and Lydia is marvelous raw food kind of lady. She makes this Kale Crunch, and I've already broken the whole thing up. I've used half the package the last time I made this, and we're going to make the other half of the package here today. All right. Now, the main thing when I started to put this together that I wanted to get in here was dulse and cacao. Dulse is really, really good for purifying your body and getting toxins out of your body, and can get some really extreme toxins out of your body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm just going to add a good size tablespoon, probably 2 tablespoons there. Cacao is a real superfood. This is chocolate. This is the original basis of chocolate. This is where chocolate comes from. It's not sweet. It's bitter. And these are cacao chips. A couple of years ago, a few companies had multi-level companies selling all sorts of cacao drinks, and I started to experiment with myself, and I was making a whole bunch of cacao drinks, and they were delicious and everything, but it didn't hold my interest for that long, and I've gone to just using it as a raw ingredient in my salad. So the other main things I put in are hemp, little hemp seed. Hemp, interestingly, hemp oil is really close in constituency to your body's, the blood in your body. So I use hemp seeds. Nutritional yeast, not as easy to get as it used to be. It used to be real popular. The farm people back in the 70s were notorious for using nutritional yeast. It adds a god-delicious flavor to popcorn, all sorts of salads. It's absolutely yummy, delicious. You can just eat it out itself. I've been using the turmeric powder. Maybe I'm overdosing on turmeric, I don't know. I haven't had any real negative effects from it yet, and I do use quite a bit of turmeric. So there's straight turmeric and then turmeric powder in there. And you remember when I made my mushroom dish, I grated turmeric also. Look at everything here. And the last one I put in is this mixture that I've explained this before. It's for pizza types, and it's a combination of about a dozen herbs in here: coriander, parsley, dill, cumin. I don't put spirulina. I hate spirulina. Cardamom, anise, peppermint, basil, licorice, fennel, cinnamon, turmeric, little sea salt. I don't put that in. Raw sugar. I don't need any more sugar in there. So about once a month, I go to my health food store and I buy about, maybe 2, 3, 4 tablespoons of each one of these ingredients, and then I mix it all together, put it in this old container that I've had. And the reason is I can't get it from her anymore for some reason. She's up in Ashland, Oregon. I'm not sure what happened to her, whether she's still there. And then I add some seeds. And the 2 seeds that I do really well with are pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. And I'll notice the pumpkin seeds were normally green, and I had some black pumpkin seeds in here. So I don't know when they changed, but it was probably a seasonal thing, and they probably came from a different farm. And the sunflower seeds, Okay, so I think that's everything in there. That's about everything, yeah. So that's in there like so. And I always get a kick out of the layered look to the jar when it's like this. You get the multiple layers in there of the dark at the bottom and the hemp seeds and the dark blues. Yummy delicious. Okay, so we mix this all up. My father was a bartender, and I have a cocktail shaker that I was using quite a few nights in a row here lately. I've been making a Singapore Sling for my wife at night, and so I've gotten back to using my cocktail shaking method. So, there's the salad. Bada bing. One nice one across the top. And at the end of the day, I'm going to top this off with a little olive oil and salt and pepper. The olive oil I'm using, I think I showed you maybe about a month ago, Il Castellate, gorgeous, delicious, rich, spicy little olive oil, reasonably priced. It's one of these that comes in and nobody knows what it is, so they discount it. And I literally bought bottles of that I gave away as a Christmas gift. Now, I keep the bottle in the clothes cabinet at the back of me, and I keep maybe a week's amount out. You don't want to have the oil with heat on it or direct light on it. It'll just stay. And I put a generous amount of olive oil. A little pepper. And remember, pepper, freshly ground, not previously ground. Freshly ground, the oils get released. It's good for you. The other way, it's not. I got 2 salts in the house, and I'm going to make a pitch here for this other book, this other salt company. This is Maldon sea salt flakes. And sea salt, there's a lot of different brands of sea salt. It's more and more processed. The thinner it is, the more commercial it gets. These are literally little flakes. This is just unbelievably gorgeous stuff. These are tiny little hard flakes of salt. Now when they're making salt, what they do is they have the big pile of salt, and as it sort of sits in, as the moisture comes out of it, it leaches down, the minerals go more and more and more to the bottom of the pile. So the bottom of the pile will be rich with minerals, where the top of the pile will be less so, and they'll grind it even smaller, and they'll add some anticoagulant so it doesn't get stick. If you're using a good quality sea salt, it's going to stick together in your shaker. Put a couple of grains of rice in there, and that'll absorb some of the moisture, and you won't have a problem with it that way. Okay, also I want to mention tomatoes. If you see any of these heirloom, purple, black, deep colored tomatoes, get one. They are unbelievably delicious. They make the red ones look like I mean, these are just really, really, really good. I wanted to bring that up also. So I got the salad there. In the frying pan, what I had was, this was the asparagus that I baked in the oven about 15 minutes at 350. I'm going to put a few of those on here. And this is the mushroom dish that I made last week, which is the lion's mushrooms with the greens. And I forgot to put the pine nuts in it when I made it last week on the air. So we'll add a few pine nuts right now to it. Now what I'm going to do with the asparagus is I'm literally going to put a little olive oil, pepper. I don't use much salt. I'm going to put a little pepper, a little olive oil, and this will be. Now my Jewish friends out there don't use much pork. I was brought up in my mother was Irish and German. A day without pork was a day without sunshine. Literally, if I didn't have bacon for breakfast, I had pork chops for dinner. So it's sort of in my DNA. And the Italians make prosciutto. And there is now a prosciutto made in America. La Quercia is the brand that I've been buying. And it's actually made in Iowa. And it's organic pork, handcrafted in Iowa, made from pork raised without any antibiotics. And I cut this package open earlier. It would take a degree in engineering to get into here under most circumstances. You just got to get a razor and cut into the bloody thing. The only way to make it work. We'll put these on the side. Oh yeah, a little lemon. Oh, the prosciutto's over here. Here we go. That's where I put everything. What I'm going to do with the prosciutto is I'm going to lay the prosciutto on top of the asparagus. Like I said, my Jewish friends that don't do ham, you might try some lox. I think lox would work really well also. And the similarity, prosciutto is to ham as lox is to salmon. This is like paper thin. I mean, literally paper thin. I can see through this. You know, remember the movie where the Italian mobsters are sitting in the jail cell and they're slicing the garlic with the razor blade, you know, to make tiny little pieces, you know. The Italians love their food and they love little things like this. And a little bit of this just goes a terribly long way. So I'm going to put that on top of the asparagus. And I'm going to put a little lemon. If you're going to cut a lemon and add it to somebody's plate, get rid of the ends. Get rid of the ends. It's just much more professional. The lemon looks so much nicer. And when somebody picks it up, they don't have the pointed end to put their finger in. It sits like so. So we got the little lemon, the prosciutto. We pour a little olive oil on the asparagus. A couple of shots of pepper. And maybe even, right, I've got some black sesame seeds. Black sesame seeds. A couple of black sesame seeds. If I had a few herbs in the house, mustard is a common that they put on the asparagus, and they make some emulsions with it. But what I probably will do before I sit down to eat this, I am going to put I'll probably put this under the in the oven for maybe a couple of seconds without the salad, just to sort of, it won't melt it quite, but it'll sort of melt it into it a little bit. And then I'll squeeze the lemon across the top, and that'll be the plate. So that will be what the dinner looks like. My salad, my vegetable dish with the mushrooms, and the asparagus with a little bit of prosciutto. Oh my God, looks good enough to eat. All right. Well, we still didn't get to the GMO book, but that's enough. We got the food done, and that's what I wanted to do. That was my main goal here tonight. So I'll hold off any talk about books and GMOs for another show. So thanks for joining in again. Peace, patience, persistence, and we'll see you as soon as we can.